Sansa tears Littlefinger a new one. Theon backs his sister, and we find out how Hodor became Hodor. It's kind of sad, actually. On this week's episode of Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 5, The Door. Alright, spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, another great progression of story going on here, really moving things along, and also more evidence of the producers starting to clear away secondary characters. But let's start things off with Sansa. Sansa getting a note from Littlefinger, who is waiting for her in Mole Town, and takes Brienne down to have a little chat. Little chat with the man. And really, I don't think this is what Littlefinger was expecting when he called her out, saying, oh, we came immediately, I brought the Knights of the Vale to help you out, and Sansa's having none of it. This is a great movement of her character with everything that she has gone through, with all of the early trust that she had thrown out, and now seeing the consequences of trusting people that you necessarily shouldn't trust. Just beautifully tears Littlefinger down in this scene. I thought that it was wonderfully done. I loved Brienne standing behind her, just waiting, just waiting for Sansa to give her the little sign to just step up and just cut Baelish down in half, just waste him. But it's just a beautiful scene of her just standing right up, right to face, telling Baelish what he had done, that she knows what he'd done, and all those just little nightmare stories of what Ramsay had done to her. I mean, and really implying it well, because, again, Baelish is the man that knows everybody's secrets. He knows what's going on. He's not quite a Varys, but he has his little fingers in everything. And also, having owned a brothel and run that, probably very aware of what the peculiarities of certain people's tastes may bring out, and Sansa knows that well, and I just love her constant questioning it. Do you know what he did to me? Yeah, and what else? And what do you think? Can you say it? Just really enforcing him to face because he was in love with his mom, with Catelyn Stark, and now we're seeing Sansa sort of a younger rebirth of that, and now having to sort of face the realities of what he has put her through. I really made him uncomfortable, really kind of whittled him down on the interior part, and rightfully so. So just a great sequence of information. Now, he did relate to her about her uncle being down in Riverdale, something she was easy to brush off. And in fact, even as he was going off, like I said, I was just waiting for maybe that one little sign for her to just shh and have Brienne just cut him right down. Didn't happen. But despite her aversion and distrust of Baelish, was happy to turn around and use that information later on in the discussion with Davos and her brother Jon about trying to get their forces together. They have some people, they really need more. If they can get all of the smaller houses, that will equal up to the couple of bigger houses that have already pledged their fealty to Bolton. And I love Davos's little bit there as well when talking with Sansa, where Sansa's like, well, the people of the North are different, and Davos is like, well, men are pretty much the same all around in my experience. So that was a nice little bit. There was a small moment there when there was a referral to Jon of being the bastard son, that he doesn't have the Stark name, but Sansa does. And there was that little flash from Jon of I think his pride being hit, of kind of like, oh, that's right, again, the bastard thing. Because he was the guy in charge at Castle Black, murdered for it. But, he had really established his reputation there. So I think kind of that little shot back of, oh, but you're Ned Stark's son, but you're not really Ned Stark's son, I think was kind of a blow. Though, admittedly, entirely possible that things ended up differently parentage-wise for, but we'll get into that for Jon Snow's possible parentage actual background later on. The idea is that he is still a Stark right now, and I don't know, maybe Sansa could give him a full thing. I don't know if maybe that's something the dad has to do. Regardless, the family of the North is going to claim Winterfell back, and that is all awesome. And Arya is now continuing her training in the House of Black and White, still getting her ass handed to her by the waif. In a nice, beautiful little fight sequence. I mean, Arya is improving, but I love the fact where the waif was like, "You're still not good enough." And Arya pops back up with a challenge. Great, it's good for her. And the waif just throws it down, throws down her staff, and then proceeds to kick Arya's ass without a weapon at all. It was a beautiful little sequence of kind of martial arts stick work. I thought that was really well done. But then when she's talking with Jaqen afterwards, learn a little bit of history here, finding out that it was the Faithless Men that founded the Free City of Braavos. Very cool. And after all of that, she is given a mission to take out an actress, to which Arya gets to go and sees this, and again, kind of an interesting little moment, seeing that the play that they're getting on is the story of, the death of the king and Ned Stark. So she is seeing a performance of her dad, and especially the moment where her dad is kind of executed. You can see that's kind of a weird thing for her to see. I mean, not only is her dad being disrespected pretty much in the play, but then re-seeing that execution, which she was there for, obviously very traumatic, and I'm sure that there are reasons why Jaqen had given her this mission, specifically to see if she was going to still be Arya, or she's going to step away and do the job that she's needed to do. What I did find kind of interesting, and I think this may be the clue into her break with the House of Black and White, is Arya's determination that this person seems like a nice person. It doesn't seem to be anything wrong with her. She's a good actress, The understudy, who she is guessing might be the one who paid the money so she could come up and take over her role. That's my guess there. But she suspects, hey, this girl isn't that great, but the money's been paid, as Jaqen puts. But I think this is starting to maybe settle things out for Arya, is her quest for vengeance has been one of justice. These are people that have wronged her. These are people who have killed. These are people who have done bad things, and that is why they have made her list. I don't think she is going to be quite as intrigued about killing someone who doesn't deserve it. And this, I think, might be the eventual break between her and the House of Black and White. Might she end up leaving the Faceless Men? How that may all work out, I don't know quite yet, but I think, again, this is starting to set things out. Her discussion of, well, this doesn't seem to be a bad person, and Jaqen's, well, the price has been paid, so if you are a servant, servants don't ask questions. Again, another interesting point, considering the whole class discussion that was going on between Waif and Arya beforehand, because Arya is more of royalty, and now she is a servant for the House of Black and White. So a lot of things kind of coming to a head right there, just sort of laying things out. And Dany now has the Dothraki behind her after the torching of the night before, of taking out all of the calls in that beautiful move. And a nice little connective scene between her and Daria and Jorah, where Jorah reveals that he has been infected with the grayscale virus. Daenerys was saying, hey, I've gotten rid of you a few times and you keep coming back. Got to kind of give it up to you. So now your mission is to go and find a cure. Find a cure, because I need you back when I take over the Seven Kingdoms. It's a great moment of connection, realization, expressive love. My only thought with that was Jorah's like, all right, I will go and find a cure. I don't know if there is one, but I will find it. Could I have some money, maybe? At least a horse? I think they did give him a horse, but it was like, go find a cure. It may not exist. I will give you absolutely no resources to do that. You're completely on your own, but good luck to you. I just thought that was kind of funny. Now, we do know that there is a potential cure, because Stannis' daughter had it, and that was her whole affliction, and they were able to find something to stop that progression. So maybe this is where Jorah's going to come up and run into Davos in the north, and we're going to have those little connections happening. That would be an interesting direction, an interesting way to do things. But again, we'll have to sort of wait and see where that's going to go. And back at Meereen, Tyrion is trying to do the full public relations things. Now that his deal with the Masters have worked, violence is down, we've got no more attacks from Sons of the Harpy. His job is now to let the people know that it's Daenerys who is behind that so he can maintain her rule. And they've pulled in a new red priestess to do this, which was kind of a cool little scene. I mean, I love Tyrion and Varys kind of dealing with each other. You know, when Varys is stepping up and Tyrion's trying to pull him back of like, hey, my friend, he's not a big religion person, you know, give him a break. That was just kind of a cool character bit. Varys, just wonderful, just stepping up and kind of tearing down the priestess and their expectations. And, you know, what about Stannis? He was supposed to be the one, and now you're saying that it's Daenerys. You know, I know that there were these issues and problems. Throwing that up nicely, but beautifully countered by the new red priestess who knows the story of his youth, how he was castrated, how it was thrown into the fire, the voice that he heard through the fire. Remember him telling that story to Tyrion last year. This was kind of a cool reflection back, and you can see that horror in Varys' face, like, how do you know? How can you see this? So it's kind of just sort of a beautiful little power play going on in that scene where Tyrion knows that they need him, and in the midst of that you have that Varys red priestess kind of back and forth going on. Anyway, I just thought that it was really well handled and just beautifully acted. Great little scene there. And we've got Yara and Theon trying to claim the throne over there on the Iron Islands. The great scene. I did think for a moment that Theon wasn't going to back her up. They held that tension on that scene for just a moment, just long enough to make you think that maybe Theon's going to do something stupid and try and claim it for himself. But no, did the right thing, backed up Yara and her claim to the throne. She's a well-known fighter, she's a well-known sailor, and he brought that point up very well to them. Of course, in the midst of this, and not unexpected, is when Euron shows up claiming the throne himself. Now, two nice, again, little moments that I thought were handled really well. One, Yara throws out immediately, oh, you're the one that killed Dad. No questions, no thoughts, no anything like that, just throws it straight out. And then him turning around and saying, yeah, that's right, I did. Because he was not a good king, and he was dragging you all down, and I have a plan to bring us back to the front, where we get our world connection here. He wants to build a fleet for Daenerys. His plan, of course, is to go and thinks that that's going to allow him to wed Daenerys, which is... Again, we're not saying that he is a smart guy, we're just saying that he has a plan. But I do like the fact that this is that connection now, as now we can start connecting the Iron Islands into what's going on with Daenerys and the rest of the King's Landing thing and all of that. So that was a beautiful little sequence. Also, apparently, they drowned their new kings. I like that. It was, for a moment, I thought that maybe Yara did getting the throne and they were executing Euron, but apparently not. They force you to drown and then come back, and that is the process to becoming king. My question is how many almost kings happen? How many people are granted kingship and then just don't come back after the drowning? Oh well, I guess he was dead and now he shall not die, or he did die so he wasn't dead before. I don't know, however all that goes on. But I did think that was kind of an interesting sequence. And of course, as he pops up, the first thing he wants to do is make sure that Theon and Yara have killed. But they have already fled, and they have taken the fleet with them, or all of the best ships. Where they're going to go, if they're going to try and do the Daenerys thing, that would be very cool. Euron's first proclamation to tear down all the trees, build me 1,000 ships. That's great. It's ennobling. It's empowering. How long is that going to take? I mean, that would be months of work at the very least, right? So, not sure how effective that plan is going to be. And of course, they could start hitting the shipyards. Theon and Yara could start hitting the shipyards if they wanted to and tearing down the ships before they were built. But we'll see where all that goes. To me, it would be a real interesting thing if Yara takes the fleet that they do have over to Daenerys and saying, hey, I can help you out. That, I think, would be better. Also, you've got a lot more girl power action going on, which is always a big plus. But, of course, the big part of this episode is the story of Bronn and Bronn's little travels into the past and into the present. First off, we find out how the White Walkers were formed. The White Walkers were formed taking human prisoners and cursing them, or whatever, that whole knife pushy thing, which was gross and cool at the same time. But apparently starting out with the war between the children and the first men. The men were probably hunting down the children, some conflict that was going on, and those children were not designed for battle. So they created the White Walkers to fight the humans for them. And then, assuming down the road things blew up and got carried out of hand, and that's sort of how it all snowballed into effect. Sorry, I didn't really mean the winter pun there, but winter is coming. So that was kind of cool. We get to see the background of how all of that happened. And I know that the Three-Eyed Raven is training Bronn, and obviously this is the big move where Bronn is supposed to take over for him. But with all of the journeys, the last time that Bronn sort of interacted with the past, when he shouted at his father, the Three-Eyed Raven sort of played off that it could have been the wind. We're not saying that anything does. So that the White Walkers find Bronn, I totally blame the Three-Eyed Raven for not preparing him. Not saying that people can hear you, can see you, you are interacting. Oh, and by the way, if you're running these White Walkers, they can find you if they touch you. Any of that. Now, Bronn shouldn't have been doing this at night on his own. Of course not. But he's a kid. These things happen. He should have been properly prepared. So that I thought was a little forced, a little pushed. Was kind of like, you probably should have given him a bit of a warning. But apparently this allows the White Walkers to come in and find them. So we're passing the torch very quickly. But really, again, where this comes down is Hodor. And we find out how Willis became Hodor. And kind of an interesting multi-dimensional time rift thing going on in that sense of, because he is warging into the past and he can hear the present, that it's the present that influenced Hodor into becoming who it is, to being Hodor, to being trapped. And kind of in a sad image is to think that Hodor's been holding that door closed his entire life. Some part of him has been trapped in that moment to hold the door, hold the door, hold the door, Hodor. In some ways that it's really kind of depressing. Though of course it does show that the time travel that the vision that when Bronn is traveling through time, that has already happened. So he's not influenced the past, he is simply doing what it was that he had already done. Anyway, I know time travel gets kind of confusing in that sense. But ultimately, again, we find out Willis was cursed, affected by the warging and the transference that went on with that, and to hold the door against the onslaught of the White Walkers while Bran is being escaped out of there. It's a very sad way of saying goodbye, because Hodor's not going to make it. Not with that many White Walkers now clawing after him. They were already reaching to the door and scrapping at him, so we probably will not see Hodor again. And that is very sad. He is a staple of the show. And again, also very sad, like I said, that he's been holding this door closed for pretty much his entire life in some part of his brain, which is, again, sad. But that was his job. That's what he was there for. He was picked as youth to grow up, to protect Bran, and to eventually hold that door closed so that Bran could escape the Walkers. Now, that means Bran's on his own. He doesn't have the roots to touch into, so will he naturally be able to warg into things? What does he have to be touching? A plant, a tree, some nature aspect? I don't really know. We'll have to sort of see that out. But it does put them in a really tough position, because now Bran's biggest trainer and ally has been lost, and now he is wandering in the woods. We're being dragged through the woods in the north, being chased by White Walkers. You better head south to Castle Black is all that I can say. Anyway, so that is it. It's the end of this episode. Big stuff happening again. Big progressions moving forward. Get to see why Hodor's Hodor, and we get to say goodbye to Hodor. Thank you so much. That was it. Hope you liked this. Please hit the like button if you did. Subscribe, hit that button right there. It's in red, says subscribe. Go ahead and click that. Come back every week. Comments, what did you think? What did you like or not like? Go ahead and throw them down in the section below. I respond to everything. You can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Darren Jakes. Other than that, that is it, and I am out of here. I am D, and I will see you guys next week. Hope you're having a good one. Bye-bye.